Okay, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started and keep us on track. Hello, welcome everyone to our annual address on the state of resource management. My name is Thomas Meredith, Vice President of Marketing, and I'll help moderate today's webcast. Presenting today will be the RMI's Managing Director, Randy Mislovic. We're really excited about this webcast. We've been starting to do these now yearly at the beginning of the year. It's a great time to bring everyone together, the RMI community together, so we're excited about today's webcast. We are the only institute dedicated to resource and workforce management. Many of you have seen many of the research reports we have produced over the years, and we're really excited to get to include a lot of that information in today's presentation. So ready to get started. Cover a few housekeeping, kind of some standard items before we get going. You guys know these by now. We are recording the webcast, and we will send that link out later today. We will have a Q&A session as well. We have a big crowd today, so we expect a lot of questions, and we're going to try to get to as many as we can in our allotted time. You'll see in your go-to webinar handouts window, we have also made a PDF copy of the deck available for download. Feel free to do that if you would like. And then last but certainly not least, for our RMCPs, our folks certified in resource management. You all don't forget there's one PCU credit available for attending this webcast, so be sure to take credit for that. Okay, without further ado, we'll get started, and I'll introduce the Managing Director of the RMI, Randy Mislovic. Randy, welcome.
Hey, Thomas, thank you very much. I'll do a quick sound check. My audio sound all right?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Well, welcome, everyone. Wow, we've got a big crowd. We've still got a lot of people joining in, but I'm going to keep us on track here and so we can finish on time today. Welcome again, and thanks for joining our 8th annual State of Resource Management. It's amazing, and just as time has gone by so fast from the first time we did this 8 years ago, and we're really excited to share with you some of the latest research and best practice information we have. I want to also offer a very special thanks to our sponsor, MavenLink. They really appreciate their support of what we do here at the RMI and their dedication to better resource management as well. So thank you, MavenLink, for sponsoring this broadcast. I'm going to follow a similar approach to what I've done in the past, and I'm going to start off just to give you a quick update on the RMI and the community that we serve. Some introductory perspectives, and then I'll dive into the real meat of my presentation today in observations, research, and best practices. We've got some announcements on some new curriculum we're bringing to the marketplace here in the first quarter, and I'll cover that and the tools you can use, and then we'll wrap up. And if I do this well, we should have some time to take some questions from the folks that are attending. So if you're new to the RMI, just a quick commercial. We're dedicated to the advancement of resource and workforce management thought leadership, and we do that in a number of ways. We certainly focus on best practice definition and development. We're about to publish our 19th research report, all topical related to resource and workforce management, as well as a white paper library. We've got a very robust curriculum for training and education and resource management. I'll cover that toward the end of the day today. And then lots of opportunities to participate in industry collaboration and events. Just a brief history. We just crossed the 900-member company boundary. We're really excited about our rapid growth over our 5-year history. I remember back in that first year when we had, less than 50 members, and trying to build this community. We've come a long way, and we're running big events like this, including, by the way, coming up, and I'll cover this near the end, is our 3rd annual Global Symposium in Dallas, April 28th and 29th. Hope you'll join us for that, in our virtual event, which we ran last September, RMI Connect. And we serve, most project-based organizations that are involved in human capital as well as workforce management environments, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But the professional consulting services environment, internal or enterprise IT, product development organizations, marketing agencies. We just added a county tax audit and advisory firms to the list of stuff that we're doing, we're tracking research on, so we're excited about that. And by the way, every one of those domains, we've got board members who joined the RMI advisory board who have given us input and advice in those particular domains, and so we're excited about that. So brief update on us. We're still focused on 4 things that I know are important to all of you: project performance, and with industry project failure rates still running at the 35 to 40% range, and with clear data that said the number one reason projects fail is because we simply couldn't get the right person in the right place with the right skills at the right moment in time. There are other drivers of project performance, but that's the number one thing, and so we're really focused on that. In addition to utilization, is what's 1 point of utilization worth to your company, and certainly everybody cares about customer satisfaction. So whether you're serving internal or external customers doesn't really matter. And then employee engagement, employee satisfaction is really important, and RM has some of the answers to employee engagement as well. If you haven't been to our website, well, you must have to get into this event. It's easy to join the RMI. Is just hit that little blue join button there that's wrapped around with the green thing star here, and it gives you behind the firewall free access to lots of information and tools you can use to get better at resource management. So, okay, with that, I'm going to start off with some brief perspectives here, and starting with, our resource management or workforce management are really all about balancing supply and demand and doing that in a critical, on a continuous basis. And, when we think about, whether you're any of those domains that I've listed, here around the circle, all those organizations are dealing with, demand issues like, lumpy demand, new products and services, and forecasting challenges, changing buying patterns. And on the supply side, we had the pandemic hit, and costs are rising, the great resignation, labor shortages. The environment that you all deal with, we all deal with every day, is quite complex, and it's always changing, which by the way makes it exciting. I think resource management is just a great place to be as far as the profession, but this is supply and demand balancing. But yet, our research says that, we still have a ways to go when it comes to stabilizing our resource management processes and a technology that supports it. And you can see some of the responses and the trend lines between 2018 and 2020. By the way, this was an inhibitor survey, and we're getting ready to run that. As a matter of fact, it just went live. So if you want to input into our latest version of the inhibitor survey, you can get out there and take that survey through our website. It takes about 10 minutes or less, and you get a free copy of the survey report when it's done. But key trends: talents is greater demand. Process excellence. We're getting better at it. We like to believe that our process solution, just-in-time resourcing, is helping bring a standardization to the industry and how we approach that. Automation tools are definitely getting better. And by the way, keep your cards and letters coming. Is that the vendors in resource management, workforce management, are listening to our research. They're listening to what you're telling us is what we need and what you need in those tools, what's wrong with them at this time, and we're feeding that stuff right back to them, and they're listening to us. And the good news is they're getting better at it. And we're seeing lots of better technology come out. One thing that came out of the most latest utilization report that came out in the third quarter is we're getting better at utilization. So, congratulations, everybody. It's really important when it comes to cost controls. And so but a clear trend of utilization improvement was there. But, a point that came out of another survey is we're not yet all the way there relative to convincing the C-suite that resource management is strategic. And I'll talk more about that here as I go. I always show this page because this is kind of the meat of how we help organizations get better resource management, is through our just-in-time resourcing approach to better supply and demand balancing for your organization. It's a very comprehensive approach. There's 6 key elements to it. But whether you use our process or something you developed on your own, you're going to have to do something about these 6 elements that are wrapped around this wheel, beginning with the skills inventory and ending with governance. We've been at this a long time, including since our parent company was formed in 2007. And so, we think we know something about resource and workforce management. And so this is when you go through a certification program, we teach people just-in-time resourcing, and I'll talk more about here in a minute. But it brings, process standardization, a documented process. You get standardized training, brings a common taxonomy, And by the way, the community's given us lots of input on this, and we're delighted to get that. We're crowdsourcing great ideas, and the curriculum's getting better and better. The process is getting better and better as we learn from the marketplace. Now, I'm not going to go through these 10 things, but I put it out here as a reference document. So Thomas mentioned, there's a PDF copy available. You can get it. This is a page where if you're interested in getting better at resource management, I print this page off and stick it up someplace where it's visible and share it with people in the organization. We track lots of best practices as it comes to workforce and resource management. These are the top 10. And while I'm not going to go through these 10, I will say that these are 10 that you can stare at and say, are we good at this? Are we getting better at it? Have we placed emphasis and time on it? And if you haven't, it's probably red meat relative to helping you get better resource management. So these are 10 best practice things that I talk about a lot because, interesting enough, for the last 2 years, the needle has not moved these 10 away from, there's not been an add and a subtract from here. These are still the top 10 that our research is saying that organizations are using and from what we're learning. So with that on perspectives, I'd like to move into my 5 observations and what we've learned since March of 2021. I would mention that we've begun to track accounting, audit, tax, and advisory firms and their role in that. We added 2 board members to the advisory board for the RMI, and delighted to have both Christine Robinson and Christine Thomas representing their companies and helping us with that as well. So, but we got detailed data across all of those domains. But I will tell you that the way we've kind of started to group these things is those organizations that serve internal customers versus those serving external customers, because we find that the commonality in those 2 groups are largely, there's a lot more that's similar than dissimilar, but we do have research breakouts that give you some information at the domain level. So the first observation I want to talk about is resource and workforce management are 2 similar disciplines that will soon merge. Interesting, in most of our companies, we have both workforce management and resource management going on, and I'll show you some definitional stuff of, what the heck's the difference. And by the way, we've been tracking and working on both of these things since our inception. You're going to see us double down and spend more time on trying to help workforce management with many of the things we've been helping the work resource management world with. But if you went into a technology company that was building computer hardware and software, you'll find there's a software group or professional consulting services group doing resource management, but somewhere in that building or another building in that company, there's people doing field service work for that hardware. And whenever they're working on controlling their human capital, they're calling that workforce management. But these are 2 similar disciplines that we think are going to merge. And there's a method to our reason for our madness in this point is that we think that workforce management and that discipline and resource management can play off each other and benefit from each other. So I'll talk more about that on the next couple of pages here. But just definitionally, if you went into the things that I have there in blue and some of those domains like accounting, tax, and audit, professional services, and internal IT as an example, they generally talk about this process of supply and demand in terms of resource management. I won't say that that's universal, but it's largely true. We don't have a whole lot of exceptions to that. Where they're doing project or engagement-based work, it's lower volume, generally higher skilled activities, and resource capacity more closely related to revenue generation and growth. And by the way, revenue generation growth, not just professional services, trying to help you move products or a marketing agency trying to move the things that they do, but even internal IT, when they're building new capabilities for their companies, a lot of times it's to build better capabilities to help service their revenue generating capabilities of those companies. And so a lot of familiarity and similarities. Workforce management, we tend to hear that term used more in contact centers, software support, manufacturers, field services, and hardware providers, retail, where they're doing more task and shift-based work, higher unplanned volume of work, lower skill requirements in a lot of cases, not all cases, and a big focus on cost reduction. But in all cases, both of these, whether you're doing resource or workforce management, whatever you call it, it's still about getting the right person to the right place at the right moment in time. And so, we've been really thinking a lot about this, and when we kind of sat back as a team and said, what's really different between these two worlds? Forecasting, staffing, and scheduling are different between the two worlds in some levels, but it is still about assigning people to work. And so again, it's more common than it is uncommon or dissimilar. And one thing we do notice about workforce management is generally the time horizons they're using for planning work are shorter than those that we see in a resource management environment. In both cases need to be longer, because when you think about human capital, it doesn't materialize overnight. It takes us weeks, months in many cases to find talented people, particularly in today's environment. And so if you don't have a forecast that is a month or two longer than however long it takes you to find human capital, then you're probably finding yourself behind the curve all the time. Skills inventory, this is a place again where we see a difference between the two worlds, in that generally in RM we see more comprehensive use of the skills database to cover the ever-changing needs of staff and resources, but it's a little depth and breadth to which we're using those things. We think that the WFM world could take advantage of some of the things we're doing on the resource management side of things. Sourcing and development, again, is that this is where we're kind of looking at that gap analysis. What our forecast says we're going to need. What do we have talent available to service that demand that we have coming in for work, and then therefore what are we doing to source and develop, hire, attrit, reskill people to be able to have when the demand actually comes to us, that we're prepared to service it on a timely way. And again, that's an area we think WFM can take a few lessons from the resource management world. Tech, there's automation technology across both worlds. There's some very good technology on both sides of in these two worlds, workforce management and resource management. They generally tend to be targeted towards those two audiences that I showed you on a prior slide. A lot of similarities, but some dissimilarities. One thing we have noticed about workforce management world is that marketplace is much more fragmented to specific service models or even by sub-function. So an example would be, we see WFM apps that are tuned to call centers, and we actually see some that are tuned to a particular kind of call center or a particular industry that's call center serving. So there's, but we see those worlds starting to come together, and so we think that's going to drive change in the marketplace there. And I think, again, on the resource management side, there is some fragmentation as well there. We just see more of it on the WFM side, but we do see those two worlds are already beginning to collide. We have a lot of interaction with these vendors, and we're seeing the WFM vendors moving into the resource management direction, and we see the RM vendors starting to do more of what the WFM vendors are doing. And so we do see we'll continue to see some collision of those two things, and I think it'll be some exciting outcomes as a result of that. And then governments, to ensure that our teams are measuring and monitoring the right things. And in the end, is people are worried about getting the right person in the right place, at the right moment of time with the right skills. And then we measure a lot of things around that, but those two worlds tend to want to measure things a little bit differently, but in some cases the same. So some of our, if I kind of step back from it all, the way the RMI thinks about this is WFM tends to be too narrow and heavily focused on cost reduction. And it's because of as we see the service models across all the domains I've talked about are becoming less distinct. The lines are getting blurred, and there's more overlap in the types of services. And we see more and more organizations looking at the possibility of using people from different parts of their workforce and overlapping and sharing resources across the enterprise to get more benefit from the investments they're making in human capital, particularly right now when human capital is so hard to come by. RM generally tends to view the function more widely, with a more balanced focus on effectively building the right supply of resources and continually growing and developing the team. Whereas, we see WFM users tend to start with, I have services or tasks to perform, how do I deploy resources to complete them? Whereas on the RM side, we see that those are doing what they call resource management, fundamentally start with, I have resources, how do I make them productive? And by the way, neither one of those are wrong. they're just a different approach to getting at the problem. And again, we think that those two worlds can tend to benefit from each other. So specifically to WFM, because we again see resource management as a broader umbrella under which WFM fits, is every company likely has departments doing both workforce management and resource management. We kind of looked at our list of member companies, and it was hard for us to think of a company that doesn't have somebody in that organization doing what they call workforce management and somebody in that company doing what they call resource management. So it's time for us to get these two worlds talking more to each other because they can benefit from each other. Adopting a longer planning horizon, 4 to 6 months, will help both RM and workforce management planning. And we tend to see the resource management focus domains tend to be a little further along in this process, whereas the WFM folks are a little further behind here. Expanding the role and design of the employee contractor database and giving more planning value. This is a place where the databases on the WFM side tend to be more tactically driven, whereas in resource management, that world has begun to recognize the value of, as an example, employee engagement. How do we find a better balance between economics of our staffing decisions relative to the things that help our employees drive better employee development or better employee engagement. Utilization improvements, everybody cares about that. Good news is we're all getting better at that, but none of us are perfect at this. And key things there are not only getting better at it, getting better utilization of our people, but getting better at the predictability of that. Do I have a utilization curve that goes up and down, or is it relatively smooth throughout the year because I got good controls around that? A better balance of cost and effectiveness, moving away from just cost reduction focus, which we see a lot of in the WFM world. Not that that's not important, but we think a better balance will serve because there's the customer service metrics that, in a call center, they're worried about, first call resolution and, average call time handling and those kind of things. And those things are still important. They aren't going to go away. But interesting enough, we see so much focus on cost reduction. It's just hard to get to some of those other metrics and see the kind of improvements we want to get to. So, and then seeing this as a workforce management, resource management strategic is really important, and I'll come back to that point. Wow, the pandemic has really changed our world in so many ways, and one of the things we're at the RMI, we're kind of at the epicenter of resource management, and so we're getting lots of phone calls and letters, people asking about what's going on in this world. We're looking for people, and so we did want to talk a little bit about this because the data is quite compelling. This data just coming out in a research report we'll publish in a couple of weeks, but we went from in 2018 where companies said 30% of you said our RMs are hard to find or very hard to find, to now 61% of those companies telling us they're hard to find or very hard to find. So that's a huge shift in demand. And no surprise is that one of the things we wanted to be as an institute was a catalyst to the industry to do more with resource and workforce management. The good news is that's happening. The challenge that's providing is that all of a sudden demand for resource managers has spiked. Everybody's looking for them. And what's happened, however, is that because there's such a shortage, what we're seeing, because we get all the phone calls on this thing and people, do you know where to find some RMs? Is that right now the organizations we're stealing from each other, where we see the shifting of people. We know where a lot of these RMs are because we're certifying tons of them, and we just see the shift of these people moving from company to company to company, and unfortunately that, as at the industry level, that's not benefiting us, right? It's just the sooner or later that's going to run out of steam, and so the better answer for the industry is we grow the pool of people that are skilled at doing resource and workforce management. And so, we've got there's no magic bullets that I have to shoot here, but I'll mention a few things we hope will be helpful. Is that we've got some really good research on the profession of the resource manager. You got to check that out. We had a report that came out in 2018. The newest one that was for data we collected in the fourth quarter of last year will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks. And it's got a ton of information about the profession and an RMO leaders, and what that world looks like, and their spans of controls and comp and all kinds of information. So if you're an RMCP, you've got access to a sample job description from the RMI site. You can get that. Training is really important in any new job. We hope you'll send people through our certification training, but whether you're doing ours, you're building your own, is make sure you got formalized training for resource and workforce managers in your business. Technology is your friend here. We've got to move away from spreadsheets, do more with PSA, PPM tools, RPM tools, workforce management tools to help us make your workforce managers more productive. So software technology here is your friend here. And then, by the way, better onboarding, particularly if you have an organization where you're hiring lots of RMs. And we've got some organizations that have 50, 100, 150 resource managers, is then paying attention to your onboarding process to get these people productive as quickly as possible is really, really important. We thought it'd be beneficial for y'all to just get a kind of view of the way we think about a resource manager's set of skills. Is we think about their foundational skills. By the way, this would be a great reference slide again if you're hiring resource managers. Is the foundational skills of your expense and tool policies, security, HR training, performance reviews, all that kind of stuff that every big company has something around. But required hard skills. For us, is sending somebody to resource management certified professional skill learning, just-in-time resourcing, or you're training them on your process that you built internally, as an example. But one that's really come to light is good resource managers need good soft skills. These are people who interact with lots of people in your company, and this is a place where our member base tells us they have work to do. And so and I'm going to talk about, we're going to actually put out a new course in the first quarter that's specific to soft skills for the resource manager. But anyway, those are the skills that we think that your people need to do a good job at this. Okay, observation number 3. I've talked about this probably in every state for broadcast, sans maybe a couple. And I'm bringing it up today because it is still the number one problem that our members struggle with on both the resource management side and the workforce management side of things. And those two worlds, by the way, we think of those as one world, but those of you who think of those as two different worlds, that's just fine. But forecasting is something we all have to get better at. So I'll start with just sharing some data, which I've shown before. So we look at inhibitors, and people tell us, we got work to do on process and reporting. But when we ask for, where are you putting your investments and time relative to fixing stuff, forecasting, capacity planning always tends to jump up to the top of the list. And by the way, understandably so, it should be, because if you can't get good at that, we generally tell people, if you can't get good at forecasting and capacity planning and build a really good skills inventory, you're going to struggle with this whole workforce management, resource management thing for a long time. So you've got to get good at those things. And then, by the way, on a tool vendor side, I hope, tool vendors that are participating today or listening, is that, the good news is we have seen the tool vendors getting better at this. And we get calls from all these vendors that want to demo their stuff to us so they can show us, their latest and greatest. And we're clearly seeing lots of improvements from various vendors in this area. But the data, the people that are using these tools, still with 40% saying, we're neutral to the tool's not sufficient. So there's some opportunities there, either to replace tools that are not working or get better at the tool that I already have. And even this, to some extent, 36%, so only 24% of you are saying that, really happy with the forecasting capabilities here. So, we see this as red meat for the tool vendors to get better at, and again, to break the dependence on spreadsheets. So I thought I'm going to take a little different tack today with talking about forecasting, as far as how I could how the RMI can potentially help you. And I'll start by just asking you to ask yourself 3 questions. How long does it take you to acquire, attrit, or retrain your human capital? Second, over what time horizon do I have a reasonably accurate forecast for demand? And then third is, does my current forecast therefore leave us proactive or reactive? So if my forecast is longer than it takes me to find these people, great. If it's shorter than it takes to find these people, as most of our members we find are in that situation, then you got to get better at this, or you're going to continue to be doing triage with your resource management functions as opposed to getting the strategic benefits that we often talk about that are available through this. So for those of you who've taken the RMCP school, this is an excerpt from our advanced resource management training class that comes after that certification training. We talk about building a better forecast. And by the way, there's a subset of this gets taught in RMCP school as well. And but we basically tell there's these 4 things. You got to have a methodology to forecasting. You need to have good, reliable data. You need to have people who are accountable for that data and the outputs. We need to have analytical capability, both tools and people that can do data analysis. And then that's got to come together with people interlocking around, do I agree that I've got good inputs from my forecast and that the outputs I'm getting from whatever the methodology I'm using are reasonably accurate relative to what we think we can expect. And accuracy over a period of time is one of those things where you have to pick a point in time, build your baseline, and then start to get better at that. And everybody we work with and see that has done that, and you stay focused on it, you can get better at it. So I started thinking about a process that they taught me. For those of you who know me personally, I'm a private pilot as well. And when I learned to fly by instruments, they taught me this process of bracketing, and we've applied this process of bracketing, which we would use on an instrument approach on a really windy day to narrow our approach down to the runway by using bracketing as a way to do that. And I'll apply this concept of bracketing to resource management in the following ways: is build a process, come up with whatever that process is you want to have. We give you a process for that in RMCP school, but you don't have to use ours. There's other people who built some really, really, really good ones, and then determine, who needs to be involved and held accountable. See step 3, or come back to that. Build document your forecasting process and educate people, and then establish a baseline. Whether it was last month, last quarter, last 6 months, you got to start someplace and just say, okay, I'm going to put a stake in the ground, and then start to execute your process. And the whole idea is educate people, build their interlock process. Lots of dissemination and communication of information on this, and get those technology solutions in place that are going to enable this process. Right, technology is your friend here, and can the spreadsheets move to most of the tools we see coming out today on the WFM side or ARM side have way better forecasting tools than they had 10 years ago, and the need for spreadsheets is just not there. We find it's more of a cultural inhibitor, keeping us from getting away from spreadsheets than we do think it's a technology problem. And then execute that process, and then keep looking backwards and saying, okay, last month, how close did I get to what I thought I was going to do? What about this month? And keep looking at the assumptions you made, what you forecast, look at the disparities, what are the drivers of those disparities, and that'll lead you to continuous improvement. And what are the metrics that I'm using to hold people accountable? Forecast accuracy indexes I've personally used a bunch of times on both the delivery side, on the sales side, when we're asking for forecasting from them, on the delivery side, when we're asking for forecasts from our delivery teams. Something that I can have an index around. How accurate am I? People won't be accountable until we start to measure them on this. So we have seen some organizations do a really good job of this, and it's really, really helping. And then make a continuous improvement. And so the whole idea of bracketing is pick a point in time and a place, start off with that baseline, and then figure out every month, where did I get it wrong the month before, and then keep eliminating the things that are causing you to be wrong. And it's I'll just say that you follow that process, you'll get better at forecasting. Hope that helps. So resource management maturity. Again, really important. And overall, the industry is still quite nascent at this. People have been at project management for I can't even remember. I think project management, formal project management disciplines started back in the 1800s or something. And resource and workforce management have been being done for a long time, but the discipline and standardization of things around that hasn't come around for the last 15, 20 years. And again, we'd like to believe at the Institute we're helping to drive a lot of that change and induce those disciplines here. But today companies are still struggling with a lot of the basics. So we're measuring things, around, how you're acquiring the skills to do the work, process work, automation tools, and those sorts of things. And the other thing is we see, generally speaking, I'll speak up about this in my next observation, is that we just don't see companies willing to step up and invest in resource management the same way they're willing to invest in quality and project management. And it's a head scratcher for us in that the data is really clear. The number one driver of project management performance failures is resource management or workforce management. So why wouldn't you get better at resource management first, put your investment money there? And it's not that project management and quality management aren't important. We think they're really important, but we think the industry still has them in a wrong order. And when they start putting their money in that order, I think we'll see that the paradigm has started to change. But some things that are just really important in this world is moving to a centralized view is a cultural thing to change. But by the way, the data is super clear. And we saw some backsliding in our latest utilization piece, or is it related to people focused on centralization, is where people have moved away from a centralized environment, they've also moved to worse utilization. The data is real clear. You centralize, you get better utilization. You don't centralize, it doesn't. And data doesn't lie. And so we really focus heavily on that as an important best practice. Getting forecasting out to 6 months or greater with some level of accuracy. And we know that the longer you go, the less accurate it will be. That's just a natural occurrence, but we think most organizations get better at that. Spreadsheets are holding us back. They're not helping us. They're holding us back. And the technology today, take a look at today's tools. There's so much more you can get out of today's tools. And then, all these things, though, we get better at these will allow us to start advancing resource management maturity. So many of you know we published a maturity model back, probably been a year or two. I can't remember exactly when. And this is a page, if you're a member of the RMI, you can download this right from our homepage, if I remember right. And there's actually a second page of this that's got the detailed version of this. But, one place you can start if you want to build gaps is just go, take the maturity model, score yourself. We got these, legends for the levels 1 through 5, and you can come up with your scoring mechanisms and score yourself. We can help you with this process if you want, by the way, but, a lot of you are DIYers, and that's okay. And that's why the maturity model is there. But we kind of put together kind of a short list of if you use the model, as many of you have, and once you've baselined that maturity, then you can build a targeted transformation plan and then define some process improvements with a clear set of goals. And the most successful firms we find, by the way, are those focused on step change. The big bang thing doesn't work here. Is got to pick off the things and do this in increments and get better at this over a period of time and make sure they communicate the goals cross-functionally. Make sure that your process design, that you got your tool designed to help you enable the process, not the other way around. We're seeing too many enterprise organizations where we're force-fitting an enterprise platform to the RMO when that particular product happens to not be a very good fit for what their process is. So focus on that a lot. The good news is a lot of the vendors are listening to us relative to how do you support a just-in-time resourcing environment in their tools, and we're seeing more benefit there. Getting good organizational agreement there, building a resource management office is definitely a best practice. Training your RMO teams. Again, we hope you'll send them to RMI school for that. Execute your agreed processing. Continuous improvement can really play well for you here. So, okay. Fifth and last observation, and I'll get to some announcements I want to talk about. We have a digital transformation business over our parent company, RTM Consulting, and I asked the team, when you're doing digital transformation of RM, and we do a lot of these, what's the one thing you wish you'd stop hearing or stop seeing that you wish would start to change? And I got back an answer that didn't surprise me, but we are kind of surprised we're not seeing enough movement in the industry away from this problem. And it's the disconnection of RM automation technology from the enterprise mainstream from a technology point of view. And by the way, there is some of that from a process point of view as well. But I'm going to focus this section on the tech for a moment. And just to remind you again, is part of it starts in the C-suite where half our C-suite sees these things as strategic, but half don't. So we see that as a problem. And again, if you're in a service business that's human capital intensive, where 3/4 of your cost is built up in people, why would resource and workforce management not be really high on your list of things that are important to your company? It's really one of those things that if it's not, it should be. And good news is 52% of the executives get it and see these things as strategic, and so that's great. So, ask yourself, how well integrated is your resource management tool set? Because when I asked our digital transformation team, they helped me draw this picture. And they said, look, here's what we see is, resource management draws information from lots of different places. Integration with those core systems, therefore, are vital. Those core systems being things like CRM or project tracking, time and absentee management, HCM systems, ERP, so on and so forth. But when those things are not integrated well, what we see are data redundancy, lack of data integrity, and that's threaded through poorly integrated environments. And you keep telling us in our research that we got work to do here. And so we have a lot of work we're doing in this space, but we'd like to, if you want to really get good at this, when you're building your process and building a technology support plan and picking your tool vendor, walk them around your enterprise tool set and, figure out how you're going to get this done with better integration to avoid some of those problems others are happening. Now I get this question a lot when I'm one-on-one with somebody, an RMO leader, an executive dealing with an RM problem. And how do you change the C-suite mindset to put more focus on this problem? And when I say more focus, quite frankly, is, help clear the roads for me, give me some more investment money to help fix some of these problems. And so, I'll start with, education again for the C-level executive. On average, 75% of a service business is labor. And, what's one point of utilization of your labor force worth to your company? And, we got a little grid we run around with and show people, and just for any size organization, it's a lot of money. And 5 or 10 points, and when we do a full assessment, an RMO rebuild, or see somebody go through that on their own, we typically see 5 to 15% points of utilization improvement. That's a lot of money. And by the way, while also getting better project performance, because that's the number one driver of poor project performance is poor resource management. So you get a twofer here when you get better resource management. On a services comprise a glue for business solutions. When you have products you're pushing out to the marketplace, we're either good at this or we're not. But the services brings this stuff together. So whether you're serving an internal client or an external client, what's the value of a happy customer to your organization? And by the way, when you move to a better disciplined ARM environment, employees like it a bit better because it's less reactionary. They less moving around from project to project, getting called off one project to triage another. They love more planned resource management environments. And so selling, in our advanced resource management course, now we're going to be retitling that to a strategic RM courses. We are selling strategic RM to the C-suite. Is we talk about, baselining what RM is and what it's not, help them understand what it is. And we give you some of the tools to do that. Focus on competitive advantage and value that RM can enable, right? If you want an agile organization, a lower cost of doing business, better throughput, better efficiency, better project performance, get better at resource management. And use your own examples. Every company's got examples where, hey, we did a good job at this WFM or RM thing and it produced a better result. Have a realistic build-up plan, but be realistic about getting a commitment to those things: data ownership, process adherence, staying on the edge. And by the way, the money that goes behind the need to invest in our RMOs and our people and our training and the tools to support this. Change management never goes away in any business discipline. So you should have a change management plan for this, and then certainly good communication. So one of the things that our team told me, and I love this because it was something that I thought of a long time ago when I started to write this just-in-time resourcing thing was mirrored in many ways off of what they had done in just-in-time manufacturing, which back in the 1970s, when I was working in as somebody advising people on just-in-time manufacturing, we learned how to go past these really human capital intensive things with high inventory carrying costs and reactionary demand management to today. If you're in the manufacturing business, you have to be practicing lean techniques and moving from inefficient to efficient in robotics and almost near zero inventory and sophisticated forecast and supply chain that have produced better, lower cost, better quality, more predictable. So we were thinking, okay, well, one thing most C-suite executives would remember is lean techniques, right? They're still very popular today. They're used all over the world, so people would remember lean. So make them think of lean in terms of resource management, because that's how just-in-time resource was designed from the 90s when back on, I know when I was in a big service organization, we had departmental silos and reactionary demand management and economics were always our first priority when it came to staffing. To today with just-in-time resource, and we're focused on trying to centralize that function, integration of our tool suites, better forecasting, capacity planning, and balanced goals. And again, moving from inefficient to a lean environment for resource management, again, to produce lower cost, better quality, more predictability. So I hope those 5 observations have been helpful to all of you, and it's good. It's all in the deck that you can download. And so I wanted to go in and talk about a few things that, in case you weren't aware, and some announcements that we're making today. First of all, we're about to publish our 19th research report. If you want information, I see a few things coming in on a question and answer panel about, salary ranges and other kinds of information about ARMS. We got research reports that got that data out there. And we got a nice white paper library. We got a webcast, a power up topic we run every quarter. We got one coming up on resource management for the remote workforce. Very timely. We got some guest speakers from Cincinnati Financial and Esri. It's both Mike Lane and Jody Ward, who run pretty big RMOs in their environments. Are going to be there sharing what they're doing on RM for the remote workforce. But those are all pre-recorded or recorded, so you can go back and listen to the past ones. I mentioned our maturity model. We have a self-assessment guides, a utilization calculator, and then lots of collaboration tools. And this stuff is, once you join, most of it's free. So if you're not taking advantage of this, go back to the website and take a fresh look. We're always adding tools to this. And if you haven't been to one of our symposiums, finally we're able to hopefully get back to an in-person event where we're going to run our 3rd annual Resource Management Global Symposium in Dallas, April 28th and 29th. And our theme, Future Proofing Resource Management. You can go out and see the agenda today. It's just about full. We're going to have a ton of experts and users of resource management, workforce management there, doing presentations on how they're making this stuff work for them. We've already got 7 technology vendors who are coming to the event to demonstrate their technology. So you get a chance in a very compressed time frame to see lots of the most modern technology being used for automating these environments. And by the way, if you sign up before February 15th, you'll save $100 with our early bird discount. So don't miss the symposium. This is a terrific event, and it's the only event of its kind run by and we're not a software vendor. We're an institute dedicated to process getting better. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our certification program. We've got 500 or 600 companies that put their arms through this program, and it's the only first of its kind development program for ARMS to learn best practices. You get access to a resource library, and by the way, you walk away with a binder that's got a robust commercial grade resource management process so you can use as your starting point for building your RM environments. We've got lots of case studies, companies that are putting people through the program. Comes to 3 venues, 3-day in class here in Cincinnati. We have a virtual class we run 2 hours a week for 6 weeks, or you can take it on demand now as well. And those are the venues. Are priced are different by what the prices are different by which venue you happen to pick there in the lower left-hand side there, and by the materials and testing fee are included, and you have to get yourself here to Cincinnati if you want to come to class here. We do offer a digital badge now that I show up in the upper right-hand corner there for for participating, in addition to a industry certification, and you get a certificate with that as well. You can get access to our schedule from our website. Just lower right-hand corner of the website, if I remember right, it's got all of our upcoming classes. We've got one starting in Cincinnati here coming up 20 days from now. We started an online class today. You can still get in and do a quick makeup on that if you want to join that class. And of course, we have on-demand available anytime you want to get at it. And by the way, we will be teaching this class and our advanced RM class in Dallas ahead of the conference on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday ahead of the conference, which is Thursday, Friday. Bundle pricing. If you're interested in doing a couple of those things together, we've got various things you can bundle together. I mentioned we got some things I wanted to announce, and I will mention this is on the training front. We've had our intro to RM class, so if you've got a newbie that wants to go to class and just learn a little bit so you can kind of get them up to speed quickly, you can take this on demand. It's a few hours of on-demand training. Of course, our full RMCP certification course. We're splitting our advanced RM course into two different programs. One focused on RMO leaders, executives, RMCPs that want some of those more strategic things, and it's going to be called, strategic resource management. And then we're also going to have an advanced course that basically teach an RMCP person very specifics about those 6 elements and some advanced things about that. And again, we have a digital badge we're now offering for the advanced course as well. Probably the most exciting one from my point of view is that this is one I wish we'd gotten to sooner. Is a lot of interest in soft skills for the resource manager. Our parent company RTMC has been doing soft skills training for consultants for better part of a dozen years, and so we had a lot of material we were able to then take and make very applicable specific to the resource management role. But by the end of the first quarter, we should have this up, done, and available. And by the way, the new courses on the next level RM development, those should be available by the end of February. If you have questions about those, we'll get the information on the next level up on a website by the end of February, on soft skills by the end of the first quarter. If you want more information now or want to talk to somebody about those, you can send a note to info@resourcemanagementinstitute.com and somebody will get back to you. There are 3 other ways we can help you. I'll mention, and then I'm going to get into Q&A. We have quite a few companies coming to us saying, hey, I just need you for some advice for an hour or two, or you can go to our website, buy an hour of time, and tell us what your topic is, and we'll put somebody on the phone with you to help you talk about whatever the issue or problem is, or where you're looking for advice, and just do it through website. No contracts necessary. All you need is a credit card and a few minutes to sign up and go. We offer strategic advisory services through the RMI, and we've got packaged assessments. So if you don't want to do your RM maturity assessment yourself, we want some help with that. We've got some package assessment approaches to that, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And you can send, again, a note if you want to learn more to info@resourcemanagementinstitute.com. And then last but not least, our parent company has been doing resource management, workforce management assessments, consulting including full RMO build-outs. We've been doing that for more than a dozen years, and you can send a note to info@, and we'll get somebody to call you to help you out. So, all right. Well, I want to, before I get into Q&A, I want to say thanks again to our State of Resource Management event sponsor, Maven Link. They've been a great supporter of the RMIs roughly since our inception. We really appreciate their support. And thank you. So if you're looking for a tool, I hope you'll give them a look-see as well. So with that, Thomas, I'm ready to start taking some questions, and we can go from there.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Randy. Good stuff here. We are getting questions coming in. We have a few moments here at the end of the presentation. So if you got your questions, enter them in your window panel there, and we'll get to as many as we can. Randy, I got one here that came in early when you were talking about your first observation, and he asked, can we run a workforce management function underneath the same RMO that is currently running their resource management?
Oh, so that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it with a simple. It depends on the nature of the work being done, and I'll try to use a couple of examples here. I'm just trying to think real quick. So if you're in an organization that's got a professional services environment that's doing resource management, and it's a hardware company, and you've got techs doing hardware support, you got a field services organization that's doing work they call generally workforce management. In that case, the staffing function is really different, right? In PS, it's a staffing function. In field service, they'd call that dispatch, right? And so those worlds are different in some respects. But I will say this, that there is a lot more common to those two environments than there is dissimilarities. And so you can get advantage of at least using the RMO to do process development and taking advantage of that, training development for the people in those environments. Whether you stick them under one RMO or two, it'll depend on the nature of the work. If I was doing software support and professional services, I could see those easily fitting underneath the same RMO environment. And then enterprise IT, it depends on what kind of company. I had enterprise IT in one place, and I was doing professional consulting services. There is absolutely a big benefit of thinking about consolidating at least aspects of the RMO, particularly around process development, process improvement, continuous improvement, forecasting technologies and capabilities are things that you can gain some economies of scale from.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This one came in, you mentioned this a few research reports, but this came in during observation number 2. What are the salary ranges you were seeing for an RM? And once you reach that cap, where do you go?
Yeah, it's a great question. Everybody's struggling with this because there is a big supply problem of resource managers and workforce managers in the industry today. There's no question about it. We published salary ranges and information in a research report that came out in 2018. We are going to refresh that data in a survey we took in the fourth quarter of last year. That report is close to being done. It'll be published sometime in the next couple of weeks, and you'll see updated salary ranges in there. We're going to continue to get more, what we don't have is geographical breakdowns and those kind of things. So we're going to get more sophisticated in what we're asking on this and probably increase the frequency with which we're doing that particular survey. But I'd ask you to go out to, there was a survey done, I think it was Q3 of 2018, and then there's one that'll be coming out here in a couple of weeks. And if you participate in a survey, it'll get pushed out to you as soon as it's available to anybody. Once you reach the cap, where do you go? I think that really comes down to your organization, what you're willing to do. I don't have a great answer there.
Yeah. Okay. Here talking about technology. Common issues seen when building a resource management tool is that each company has their own process, terminologies, so customization doesn't satisfy most. How do you tackle these specific requirements?
So, it's a great question, and it points exactly to an industry problem. If you went and looked at project management, although, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, they've come a long way towards standardization. And, some of the organizations like the PMI as an example have tried to work towards trying to get some standardization there. And a lot of the tool vendors have worked towards utilizing at least some of the standardized terms and things and such. I would suggest that, again, what we're trying to be as a catalyst in this regard is that just-in-time resourcing was the first commercial grade process solution we're aware of that came to the marketplace that is now in use in hundreds of places. There are a ton of people who have been trained out there. You go out to LinkedIn and key in the search grid RMCP, you'll just get pages and pages. We got a lot of RMCPs out there that are doing it. And what we think we're bringing to the industry is standardization of a process, standardization of taxonomies, and would encourage you and your companies to start adopting some of those in your organizations, because that's how it ends up working. That's what happened in project management is a lot of companies, not all, but a lot of them went towards these standard industry terms. And we're trying to do that because we think the industry will start to benefit. Every time we hear a company starting from scratch to build their own resource management process because they're quote unquote different, it makes me feel bad for them, because I realize that if they really spent the time, really looked at what's available today that they could buy and then customize from there, you get there a whole lot faster doing a buy versus a build. And it doesn't matter whether you got 10 employees or 500,000 employees. We're running this process across huge spans of organizations. And we think we can help you a lot with that. The vendors are listening to us. They're adopting a lot of our terminology. We're seeing a lot of that start to change as well. It's, we're not there yet, but we think the bigger, better vendors are going to gravitate towards adopting what we're doing, because the industry is definitely moving in our direction as it relates to that, because we think we're solving a problem that was there and needs to get solved, and we think we have a good answer.
Very good. We are, we're running out of time. We're at the top of the hour. There have been a few more that have come in about hiring resource managers and compensation. And short answer there, I'll echo what Randy said. We have research reports on the website that can help with that. Couple questions coming in about some of the new courses we mentioned, the Intro to RM. That information is on the website as well, in our RM classes section. So please check those out. I want to make sure everybody gets the right info and knows where to go for that information. As I mentioned, we're at the top of the hour. Randy, we're going to stay on schedule, and I'm going to wrap up here and just thank you for spending some time with us today, bringing your 5 observations. Really great stuff. And then and thank you to everybody who joined us on the line today. I appreciate your time. Hope we'll see most, if not all of you, back here in about a month. Our first Power Up session of the year is March 2nd, and it's on resource management for the remote workforce. So please keep an eye out on your inboxes for that, and register for that, and we hope to see you in about a month. Randy, really appreciate the time, and I'll thank everyone again. Have a great day.
Great. Hey, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it.